Hi everyone, and welcome to another conversation here with co-living founders. This is Guy, and today we're going to talk to Murray Clark, who is the founder of the Neighbourgood. The Neighbourgood is a co-living space in Cape Town, South Africa. They have more than 500 tenants, and they're now expanding to San Francisco. And in this podcast, we're going to talk about how they were able to create a model that's very different from others, how they were able to be completely self-funded. And I really hope that's going to be very motivational for co-living founders out there. Murray has done an amazing job, and we're going to debrief just after the session. So remember, it is possible to create sustainable co-living businesses. Let's explore how on this interview. Enjoy. I want to hear everything about Neighbourgood.
Thank
So
you
just
for
for
having
context,
me.
yes, you're welcome. So just for context, right? Like I don't think
Sure.
we've ever talked, right? Like in
No,
person. No.
no, I
But
don't
like
think so.
yeah, but I've been following your work for the last like years, and every time I'm like, he seems to do something right. Like, I don't know, every time I feel like you're opening like new spaces, kind of at the right time. Like, I'm seeing that, like, I heard like really, really good feedback from people that stayed at
Uh,
Neighborgood, and you seem
That's
very
good.
genuine in doing it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd be curious, maybe we can start big picture, kind of like what's Neighborhood and like what you're doing in Cape Town right now
Man.
and how did it
Well,
come about?
firstly, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it tremendously. And yeah, maybe it's just luck. I think uh, I think it's a whole bunch of things, and maybe it's good karma coming back at us. I'm not sure. But we're a connected city product, so a lot of the themes around co-living that we were just chatting about before we started, which are around shared economy principles, community integration, events and activations, just like this whole ethos of kind, supportive living is really not just relevant to co-living, it's relevant to all of us, right? So it doesn't matter what age category we fall in, whether you're in your 20s, whether you're in your 30s, whether you're in your 40s, or you're a senior. Um, all of these things are relevant. And you've just moved into your own apartment with your partner, and so you're moving into a different category in your life, right? But we were just saying how all of these themes that co-living is synonymous for, again, like kindness, supportive culture, community, are relevant to all age categories, not just one or the other. And I think that overall for us, that's where the industry needs to evolve to. And that's again, that's how I think Neighbourgood was founded off the principle that we aren't really just in a box. We're not in a co-living box. We're a connected city product offering that focuses on building multiple buildings, living and working spaces across the city of Cape Town and now San Francisco, where our members get access to the whole city, right? So if you think about it, when you come into Cape Town or you're coming to San Fran or you're coming to New York, you're not just thinking about the building that you're staying in, you're thinking about the lifestyle appeal that the city has to offer, right? In this like post-COVID world that we live in, we now have the luxury and the remote ability to live anywhere. So we can choose cities based on what they have to offer us, the quality of life, the price, like how friendly are the people, what's the weather like. So you look at those things before you look at the building that you live in, right, as a consumer. So we wanted to start with that. Like, which are the best cities in the world do you and I want to live in this post-COVID world that we now live in? And Cape Town, luckily for us, is possibly the best canvas that we could have ever started with. It just has like beautiful weather in summer. It's not that bad in winter, even if everyone thinks it is. It's affordable. Like there's beaches, there's surf, there's wildlife, there's amazing food. The people are incredible. So that's for me where we wanted to start. We wanted to build a product around the city and the value that the city has to offer to this like remote world. When you're thinking about how many people can now live remotely, almost 70% of LinkedIn jobs that are being advertised with some level of remote work. So we can all live, half of the year in a different country, And again, starting with the customer journey, we start with the cities we want to live in, and then we look at the buildings, and then we look at the experience across the entire city, everything from where we're going to eat, where we're going to live, where we're going to work, and we wanted to build one product for that, and that's what we've done across our now 20 buildings in the city of Cape Town. 80% of them are living spaces, 20% of them are working spaces, and then recently we acquired a little company called Local Knowledge, which is the experiences vertical of our consolidated offering. And that sort of closes the loop for us: living spaces, working spaces, and experiences, wrapped up in an all-access passport to the city of Cape Town, and now the city of San Francisco, and hopefully soon Los Angeles and New York as well, through an entry into Brooklyn too. So that's what the product is. Like anything in life, it hasn't been this beautiful linear journey where we wake up and we're on cloud nine and things just go well all the time. It's obviously just the nature of startups that we face challenges, and growth is never linear, or just progress is never linear. Like lots of ups and downs, figuring things out. We're a self-funded company, so we don't have access to significant amount of VC capital, and I think that's a blessing in disguise for us. If in a previous life I developed shopping centers across South Africa, and so I was lucky enough to have 2 decades of experience in ground up construction, in property development, and all of those good things that we've been able to apply to building Neighbourgood. A lot of those mixed use principles in convenience retail are relevant to how we build buildings across the city. Designing a consumer experience in a living space, a lot of the same rationales are relevant to designing retail, right? Because it's all about one thing: the consumer experience. So love for the built environment as well. I think in this very tech world that we all live in, the ability to have a meaningful impact in real life, in the buildings that we occupy, is really special to us. Obviously, tech is super important to the business, but the magic happens in the spaces. It doesn't necessarily just happen online. And that culture and that community integration and everything that is so important to us as a company really comes together in this space and across a city. So that's the good journey that we've all been on. Our team is now 190 people strong across 2 continents. Again, so lucky to be headquartered in Cape Town as a city. It really is a special place to live, but we're excited about the future. I think in as far as growth goes overall, we want to be super sustainable. So for us, the density product makes a lot of sense. We became profitable last year, which is awesome. And a lot of the reason for that is because we have built a density model, right? So having multiple properties in one cities and bringing focus to that city, and understanding the streets backwards, who the real estate guys are, who the brokers are, what are the good sites, what are the bad sites, all the ins and outs that are so important to really understanding the fabric of a business or a city, for us has been super important. We've intentionally not expanded further until now. We spent 4 years refining the model, making sure that it works, making sure we made the mistakes that we needed to make, making sure that all of our different departments worked well, making sure that operations could match growth. I mean, that in itself is something that we had to figure out as we went. We also run a completely hybrid, so you can stay with us for a few days up to a year. That in itself presents challenges because there's different PMS systems, there's different booking channels. So we're I wouldn't say leading the path, but we cutting a path through something that doesn't really exist. This whole flex space between a few days and a year. And then when you integrate workspace, events, and other things into the business, it also creates more complications in as far as operational challenges are concerned. But we've been quite steadfast in our strategy because we think that the future of living encompasses workspace and experience too, as well as community. It's not just a room in a building that we can then, scale and across multiple cities. It's the experience of living is so much more than just a room in a building. It does include a whole bunch of other benefits. And we wanted to make sure that when we created a product, we offered all of it in one so that you didn't have to then go and sign up at another workspace like we work down the road or sign up for multiple experiences. We wanted to at least create a platform that was a one size for you. And then you can, of course, personalize it when you're in Cape Town organically. You'll meet new communities, you'll make new friends. But if you don't have to look anywhere else for your living spaces, your working spaces, and your experiences, and you can identify with a brand that also means something to you. For us, our mission is to bring good to neighborhoods. That's why we exist, with a big focus on adaptive reuse. That's something as well. And we try and obviously, create as much of that ethos to all people that live and work with us, that like bringing good to your world is super important, in the hope that one day we can all leave the world a better place than we found it. So that's us in a nutshell. We're 4 years into this journey as of yesterday, and we continue to learn every day. And it's only through good people like you and our team and such a cool collaborative industry that the co-living industry is. I mean, honestly, I think it's just like one of the most supportive collaborative industries that there is, in like a culture of business that's not really collaborative, right? Like business is this profit-making exercise, whereas I find co-living, just the foundation of it from a principles perspective, to be like really centered in community and supportive culture. And that's why I love the industry as much as I do, because of those reasons.
Wow, hell yeah. Okay, I have a lot of rapid fire questions. Just to
Okay.
understand, because right now you gave us a complete overview of like everything, like all your model, all your background. So concretely, if we look, for example, at Cape Town now, big picture, how many residents do you have?
We have about 500 members across our 500 rooms, and we have about 500 workspaces. So in total, about 1,000. And then we have cafes as well. We developed a little brand called Nice. So people use our cafes
Is it
every day. By extension, we have a community of about 4,000 to 5,000 people who don't necessarily just live and work with us, but who attend our events every week.
nice? And the cafes, I saw like you opened one recently, right? Like,
Yeah. So it's called
nice.
Nice, and it's so
Oh,
fun,
nice.
dude. It's yeah, man. I think we're a hospitality company, right? So like nice and good. I mean, they live together
That's
well
good.
as words. The whole idea is that like life is not just we're constantly chasing like a 10-year goal, right? Like whatever that might be, and we underappreciate just the small daily moments that are nice together. Whatever that might be, coming home and seeing your partner, coming home to seeing my son at the end of the day, like having a coffee with a friend, and just appreciating those small nice moments that are actually why we live, rather than constantly chasing a dream. And that's sort of the rationale behind Nice. It's this really cool cafe meets workspace that's a complement to the balance of the Neighbourgood business, that also just like from a culture perspective speaks to who we are.
Yeah. And also just a little anecdote on the thing of like constantly chasing our dreams, because it's true, we constantly are chasing our dream. We're spending so much time and energy towards a future goal. And
Oh
one day I
man,
asked
all
a
the
friend, I
time.
was like, what about you? Which dreams do you have? And his response was like, well, I am currently living my former dreams. And I love this response because it was true. Like he was living in his van, he had his van life, whatever. He had dreams of whatever, like a house or whatever. I don't know what his dreams were. Like he was a
Yeah,
DJ, but like his focus was like, I'm currently living my past dreams. This is what I'm putting focus on. I really like that.
completely.
Like
I also
enjoying
love that, man.
these
That's
nice
awesome.
moments. So, okay, so you have 500 residents, 500 co-working spaces. You have the cafes with like several thousand customers. What type of like, so because like in co-living, you have different types of co-living, right? You have people that use the term co-living more for micro units, others for like shared apartments or shared houses. What did you, I'm curious, what did you create? And did you create different types of like living arrangements?
Yeah. So we've got broad spectrum, and it's something for everyone depending on where you find yourself. If you're younger or if you're just looking for a more social experience, we have like hybrid hotels that range in size between 10 bedrooms to 120 bedrooms with common facilities, common kitchens, cafes on site, wellness spaces, just really cool common spaces that accentuate the experience of living in a shared space. I think then we also have apartments. So we have a whole bunch of standalone apartments. Let's say, someone like you have kids, or like me, I have kids and I need some more privacy, but I also value community and access to workspace and access to events and activations. My wife and I can rent an apartment for a few months. We have some privacy, but we also have access to all the benefits.
Yeah.
So we have broad spectrum across both shared spaces and private spaces. And I'm a big proponent of not cookie cutting the approach, even from a design aesthetic perspective. Every neighborhood is different. Every building is different. So we'll have like a series of themes that make you feel loved and warm when you come inside. Like it's designed to elevate your mood when you walk in, from everything, from hard looks, from hard smells, from the music you hear. We've really like designed a consumer experience, how our staff interact with you, the messages you get before you arrive. Like subconsciously, we want to bring as much good to your life as possible. It's not just like a functional residential experience where you sort of get sent a message, these are your keys and all the best, and get an invoice once a month, which is like broadly speaking where multifamily is as an industry. The whole landlord tenant relationship is functional at best. So we want to like really move away from that and drive a much broader, better hospitality experience, which is, I think, in line with our mission to bring good to neighborhoods and bring good to people. So yeah, I think that we can absolutely play in a broad spectrum across multifamily hospitality subsets, and then the workspace integration for us is more like slow lounges or work clubs, as we call them. It's not like we have big workspaces, but our focus moving forward in the US and in Cape Town will be on creating work clubs, which is much smaller, more intimate spaces. Think about sort of like a next generation Starbucks on the corner in a neighborhood, and like free access to that space. Well, not free access, but very like well-priced access with free coffee, and far more permeable, less insular in terms of offices, far more like community centric in how it's positioned.
So almost like going a bit more towards a social club, right? So because for example, you have like co-working spaces that are very much about work. You come in, it's silent, you have your desk and stuff. You work around others, you meet some people, but most of the time, 98% of the time, you're focused, right? You're in your zone. And
Completely.
one thing I'm seeing coming up more and more, and especially you've probably seen that in SF, is the notion of social clubs, which is,
Yes.
like more like intimate spaces, maybe 100 people.
Yeah.
But there might be like a work area, maybe that's closed off, also like in terms of
Correct.
sound, but there will be another area that's mainly made for interaction, or like where interactions are encouraged. Like are we going
Yeah,
towards this?
completely. So I would say we are smack bang in the middle. I love some of the work that the ground floor guys are doing in San
Exactly.
Fran. I've had the good fortune of meeting, I think Jamie and his partner, like absolutely love it. I mean, there's some incredible new, like culture building workspace concepts that we've seen across the world. And for us, just as a business, our core focus is on the living experience, and our workspace as a product is a complement to that. We don't want to go compete with the WeWorks and the Industriouses of the world. It's non-core for us. But as a function of living and experiencing life in cities, workspace is important, and connecting with other people is important. So on the ground floor of our buildings, being able to like design these next gen workspace experiences that pair social with like space for deep focused work is super important. And it's where we can be creative, right? It's where we're going to do our best work. And I'm not a big fan of sitting in an insular office for longer than a few hours at a time. I like having people around me. I think it's better for productivity, at least for me. I mean, even for the introverts of the world, you don't want to be locked up in an office for 10 hours, depending on how many hours a day you're spending at work. So I quite like the intimacy around some of these new concepts. And that's that's definitely how we have represented ours. We have 4 across the city now, and 1 launching soon in Redwood City in San Fran, which is like a really cool work club. The idea is that we bring the price right down. I mean, I think in South Africa, it's about $50 a month, which is super cheap. And then I think in San Fran, we'll be in like the $90 to $100 a month with free coffee, with access to free events, with community, with everything. Again, like we want to be affordable. We like if hot desks are priced at $250 to $400 a month, it's too expensive for normal people. We want to remove the barrier to entry and just make it a lot more accessible for people if possible. And for all of our residential members, it's completely free.
So I'm curious, from financial side, right? You said you got profitable last year. Congrats.
Yeah.
What's your business model, and like how do you explain to others like how you became profitable? Like what were, I guess, like the key things that you implemented? Because we're seeing how a lot of like co-living operators, first of all, they're not sure about their model. They're hesitant. Like a lot of asset light, now they're thinking like, should we become asset heavy? But it's a different growth
Yeah.
path. And then even for those either that are asset light or asset heavy, there's a lot of co-living operators that still struggle. And actually, did you say you had 190 employees? You were
Yeah.
190, which is a huge amount. So like maybe you can tell us like how does it fit in? Like what's your model and how are you able to be profitable to run this? And maybe like
Okay.
break down kind of like your main revenue source as well as
The
kind of key
detail.
earnings.
Okay, cool. So I mean, it's really quite simple, and we tend to complicate in this VC world that we live in. That's funded by tech, cash, and we overcomplicate growth metrics.
Yeah.
We're a property company, so we're a property development, management, and investment company that has an opco and a propco, and we're agnostic to either. We're opportunistic in how we see things. So whether we are signing a management agreement or a lease agreement, or we're buying a building, everything is in the deal. That's it. So like in terms of how we set up in Cape Town, there's a few key themes and how we will replicate our success in other cities. Number one, the density is super important. So you can be far more efficient when all of your buildings are within an hour of each other, right? Like just the whole guest experience, your ability to interact with your teams on the ground, absolutely everything. You can create cluster management where you can share resources in a closer proximity and you can divide the cost of that key resource. Let's call it a portfolio manager across 15 buildings. Now, all of a sudden, you're not paying $7,500 to $10,000 for that person in South Africa, because obviously our costs are a lot less. You're paying $1,000 per building. So the economies of scale, leveraging a density model, make a heck of a lot of sense. And that is the intended growth path we have into new cities. So 30, 40, 50 buildings within a close proximity, not multiple buildings in every state. Even if it is centralized like an HQ, it's still inefficient when you have one building in Oakland, one building in London, one building in Melbourne, 5 buildings in New York, 10 buildings somewhere else. Like focus on density. And then I think the economics can get a heck of a lot better. I think in as far as the opco propco setup is concerned, I know there's a lot of debate generally around that. We're intuitively property people first and customer people. So for me, when I look at an asset, I want to move it from a $1 asset that we buy for 80 cents, and I want to convert it into a $1.40 asset So the delta is on the 60 cents that we create, firstly, by buying correctly in the right neighborhoods. So we're looking for deals that make sense. Secondly, by using our connected city living and workspace model to then move that 80 cents brick to a $1.40 brick by driving shared economy principles, by using flex rental integration, by doing a whole series of things that we do to move the net income upwards. Flex is one thing, but there's a whole bunch of other things that we do. The intention is not to try and make it inaccessible to consumers from a pricing perspective, because as a brand, we're inclusive, right? So we want to make it affordable. We just want to make sure that overall that flexibility in how we position our membership agreements provides for some level of delta between cost and value. I think using the PropCo as an instrument also means that we generate far better net asset value on balance sheet than just a property management company. Property management company in the US, if you're earning between 3 and 6% of top line, especially in the multifamily space, you're doing well. You then have a US-based cost structure, which is extremely expensive unless you're offshoring your back end. And even then, there's still costs. Based out of South Africa, using a hybrid property management vehicle that our average fee is between 8 and 15 to 18%, depending on whether it's long or short term, with a cost structure that's based out of South Africa, the GPs are significantly better, right? So if it's costing, let's say you're charging 4% in the US, your cost with a full property management team will probably be at least 4/5 of that until you get to a few thousand units, maybe even more. You're probably spending money just to bring the business on. When you're operating out of Cape Town, as we are, even in the US, 80% of the property management work is done out of SA. So it's just, again, far cheaper for us to do that. So when you can combine best-in-class PropCo principles, which also has other benefits because we can control the customer experience a lot better, and I'm not fighting with landlords about property management fees, you can do that. You can be based out of a more affordable market like SA, and you integrate density. The whole picture changes, right? And as far as profitability is concerned. So the combination of those three things for us has helped create far more profitable unit economics across both OpCo and PropCo. Again, like we like as a generation of entrepreneurs, we see what's in the media or whatever other companies are doing, and we want to follow. But in my mind, like declutter your mind from all of these things and think about the deal and the customer, because those are the only two things that matter, right? If you can enter into a lease agreement and you're paying $1,000 for an apartment, and you know you're going to collect $2,000 in an apartment, and there's 100% margin on that, I'll do those deals all day, assuming the delta is there. But if it's only 10 to 15%, I'm not willing to take head lease risk, right? On the other side, if you're doing a property management deal and you've got a very difficult landlord who's only going to give you 3% or 2%, and he wants to take away every single cost on the P&L, no community, no events, no activations, and he wants all of that for next to nothing, plus insane reporting requirements on a monthly basis, which we have to do anyway. You start like looking at which deal actually makes sense. So what you need to do is find really great property owners on the management side who identify with the company that you're building and your messaging at reasonable market-related fees that make sense depending on the market that you're in. And then you also need to look at other ways of doing deals. We have some lease agreements on our books. 80 to 90% of it is property management agreements or revenue share agreements. But I can tell you that for the 2 or 3 lease agreements we do have, we make almost 50% of the same income in the whole property management business on the other side, because the landlords didn't want any risk on that side, and they were happy to give us the upside on between what we were paying them and what we were able to collect. Combine that with PropCo, and we are buying buildings of $2.5 to $5 million per piece, and we can create 30% margin on each asset. You do that 10 times a year, all of a sudden you've got another $2 to $3 million in net asset value that you've created on those 10 deals, and you've got a profitable operating company, you've got a profitable property company. It serves to create sort of best and highest propco, opco principles that make sense. And then obviously in the course of Neighbourgood's business, we're doing it very focused on a density model in the cities we operate only in. And that will be 3, 4, 5 cities max over the next 5 years. And just really understanding the streets properly, the brokers, just the whole industry. Because when you do reverse propco into it, scale, there are limits in terms of what scale looks like. And we are comfortable with that.
Epic. Thanks so much for sharing. And like one thing I want to highlight, and maybe we're seeing this only in retrospect, is that it did take you 4 years to really, implement yourself in Cape Town, to figure out your model, to realize like your own ratios, the things that works, the thing that doesn't. And now you're in a very good spot. And now I'm going to be very curious, how are you going to replicate that model in other areas that will have differences, right? San Francisco has different types of building typologies, different types of market power. Like so the wages are way higher, right? So like I'd be very curious, like we'll have another podcast in 4 years and then we'll see like how you were able to grow these areas. Hey, look, I really appreciate this conversation. I know we're running a bit at the end. The final question I usually always have is like, to all of the other co-living founders out there that want to create really cool spaces and experiences for people, if you were to go back in the last like 4 years and you would make certain decisions differently, what would they be? Like what were some of the things where you'd be like, okay, these were some of the key learnings or some of my key mistakes that made me grow, but now I learn from them and I don't make them again.
I think the industry overall needs to evolve from co-living in isolation to like community-centric, multifamily. It needs to evolve from a box, which it's in at the moment, serving quite a small market segment of people in their 20s, to serving that and everyone else, and taking the same themes that are relevant to co-living that we chatted about, and creating it provides for better and more sustainable scale overall. Taking co-living themes, which are all amazing, and applying them to multifamily is for me an absolute no-brainer. Multifamily cap rates are better as well and more established, so I like the blend of both. And I think overall, just get to it. I think for us, like, don't procrastinate, be cautious, don't take funding on that's unnecessary. The beginning hard bits where you are scraping for cash at the end of the month to pay bills are necessary. They serve to help shape you as an entrepreneur, and they serve to help make you better entrepreneur. And I would encourage you to, like, as uncomfortable as that is, to like lean into that, even if you cry yourself to sleep at night, because at the end of the day, those defining moments when you can work through them, you tend to solve problems. You tend to learn to solve problems. And as much as I think funding is important at the right time, you need those defining moments in your life as an entrepreneur to force you to think out the box, right? And to maintain that sense of frugality. I don't think, had we been funded, we would have achieved the success that I think we're going to achieve, because it's easier to make decisions with funding, because you can spend more, right? You can hire more people. That comes at a cost, and that then limits sustainability. So I think that thinking about this whole hybrid hospitality, co-living, multifamily space, unbox the way we think about it way more in a blended fashion, because that's the future. It's really like connected living workspace product. And then from a funding perspective, again, like lean into the difficult times. I'd rather be where we are now, having gone through the process that we did, where myself and my co-founders did everything in the beginning. We didn't take a salary for a long time. And now, 4 or 5 years later, we're lucky enough to be profitable. But that process doesn't happen overnight. It's been sort of, for me personally, it's been a 20-year journey in real estate. And only now do I really feel like we're making the progress that I would like to see. And hopefully the next 20 to 30 years will be just as good.
Yes. Just brings up like one passage. Do you know Tony Robbins, the
Yes.
motivational guru? He has this show on Netflix, and there's one guy who's like a bit suicidal or whatever, and Tony goes in and he's like, "Man, you're overestimating what you can do in a year and underestimating what you can do in 10."
Yes.
And so thanks for
Completely
sharing your
agree.
journey, because like putting all
Pleasure,
of that
man.
into
Keep
these
up the great work, and looking forward to connecting with you again really soon.
Amazing. So anyone, Cape Town, go check out the Neighbourgood, and
Thank you. And San Francisco, and soon
San
to be New
Francisco
York,
coming up
obviously.
soon. Yes.
Cheers,
All right.
Gui. Cheers, mate. Bye. Have an awesome day.
All right, that was it. I really hope you enjoyed this conversation. Look, when I look back, I think there's 3 things for me that really stood out. The first one is how they were able to diversify their product offerings. They started with co-living, they added co-working, they bought an experience company, they're opening a coffee, thinking about opening a social club. So they're creating this entire ecosystem of services and offerings that are serving the same target audience. And that's very powerful. The second one is the fact that they focus on one geographical location. We can't stress this enough. We're seeing how a lot of co-living operators are having a really hard time because they want to expand to different locations without really having nailed down one geographical area. And if you grow too fast, if you grow too quickly into different types of geographical zones, well, you're gonna have to tackle the issues of hiring, of having a lot of HR overhead costs, and it's going to be very challenging for your model. So Murray did it really well. He focused for 5 years on one geographical area before expanding to another one, which is, in this case, San Francisco. And look, the third one is the fact that this company is completely self-funded. They started with lease agreements and revenue shares and have been expanding to the point where now they have 190 employees without any single investment in the operations company. And that's quite impressive. And even though it was a hard path for Murray as well, he shared how these times weren't easy for him. It was the right decision because first, they are profitable. It made them have to be profitable. And the second thing is that it made them better entrepreneurs. As Murray said himself, being in such situations makes you or teaches you how to become a better founder, how to make better decisions. And so you're not chasing this growth path that eventually will turn profitable. You're chasing this path of profitability from the very beginning. And then once you reach it, you scale it. And it's a completely different story for a business that doesn't want to be in the headlines the first couple of years, but wants to be in the headlines in 5 to 10 years from now. So we hope you got inspired by this interview or podcast and conversation, and would love to know if there's anyone that you want us to interview. Please put in the comments and what your key learnings were. Would love to hear. Have a great week, everybody. See you for the next one.